Okay. Hi, everybody. This training tonight is on social media and online safety. I will be your presenter, Camille Hereth. I'm a counselor. I've been a counselor for 17 years, working mostly in social services with women and families. I was a foster home licenser for several years, as well as a foster parent, and have 3 boys of my own. And with the Alliance, I am a trauma-informed caregiving specialist. So I'm someone you can reach out to anytime. Trauma is a pretty wide net, but if you have some significant challenges with kids, specifically neurodivergence or newborns, I'm definitely a good person to reach out to for support. We actually had someone from our last group who reached out for me who just wanted more information about the topic we have been discussing, and that was great as well. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to identify most common myths about sex abuse, that this is the biggest risk factor of online safety. We're going to talk about safety guidelines for keeping kids safe, online gaming and apps and social media, how public safety relates to online safety, what to do at home to help keep kids safe online, and the difference between bullying and teasing. So, one of the common myths about child sexual abuse is that only men can be the perpetrators. Another is that a child is only abused by an adult that is a stranger. And another is if a child is sexually abused, that means they will also then become an abuser. And if a child is sexually abused, that it was their fault. They did something to bring that onto themselves to attract it. And these are all myths. None of these are true. Here's some facts about online safety. And we start with the sexual abuse because that is the number one risk factor of for kids being online. So there are an estimated 500,000 online predators active each day. I pulled that data from the FBI. Children between the ages of 12 and 15 are especially susceptible to being groomed or manipulated by adults they meet online. According to the FBI, over 50% of victims of online sexual exploitation are between the ages of 12 and 15, and 84% of online grooming is against females. So I start off with that again because that is the greatest risk for children being on social media apps, being online, is the predators that we can't see and they can't necessarily identify. And so we're going to talk about today how to mitigate that. What we're going to start with is a 9-minute video that demonstrates how hard these predators work and how easy it is to get access to our youth. So this video is a mom that they create a fake profile and she dresses herself. They do her makeup and everything to make her look like a child. And we're going to see what that whole process looks like. So I'm going to pull that up here. And then once we watch this movie, for a short video, we're going to come back and continue the presentation. But it gives a really good context of what the risks are that we're facing right now. Hold on, I forgot to share my sound.
Child predators. It was 2 years ago when our team intercepted conversations
Can everyone hear it okay? All right.
Between a 12-year-old girl and a 40-year-old pedophile. He wasn't just talking to her, he was abusing her, coercing her, collecting images and videos, and no one in her life, her parents, 6th grade teacher, or friends, knew what was happening. I have a 6th grader of my own. I have 3 kids, actually, but you don't have to be a parent to be devastated by this. I work for a tech company that uses artificial intelligence to detect issues like grooming and sexual predation, and this is something we see constantly. These abuses are occurring quietly and mostly go unreported, and we want...
Before we keep going, I want to give a little, I don't know what the word is, like a heads up. There's no graphic images. There is some language, explicit language that's used. So if that would be upsetting to you, I would just step away for 9 minutes and then come back. It's a short part of the video, but they do use some graphic language to demonstrate what's going on.
Parents to know exactly what we...
Sorry. Also, if there are kids around your video, please use caution around it.
Should I maybe fast forward through those parts?
Is this going to be an issue for anybody? Does anybody have children with him?
I want to be really respectful of kids in the home. I don't want, if there are kids there and that would be prohibitive to you continuing, then I can just give an overview and we can skip the video.
Okay. It looks like we're okay.
Know about what happens online. So we made a plan.
A man has been arrested for allegedly raping a 15-year-old that he met over Snapchat.
Instagram has become the #1 social media site.
At the top of the free download.
We've also seen firsthand the predatory symbiotic relationship that exists between Instagram and Snapchat.
We would create a fictitious 15-year-old girl, complete with a believable social media identity, put her online, and document how long it would take for a predator to approach her. But creating a person out of thin air is complicated. We needed photos, but we knew we couldn't use an actual teenager. It would have to be someone on our team. I'm 37, but our graphic designers assured me that with the wonders of photo manipulation, they could magically make me look over 2 decades younger. We bought clothes and accessories, studied body language and facial expressions. We methodically covered and edited signs of aging, wrinkles, weight shifts, and stretch marks. Meanwhile, we coordinated with federal, state, and local law enforcement. Then we built a story around her, a history, a family, a social circle. Libby was born in 2004 and is a sophomore who recently moved to Indiana. We created multiple online accounts for Libby, prominently displayed her age, and posted typical teen content. We even created virtual friends for Libby who would comment on her posts. With everything in place, we would launch the project, give it a few months, and see if anyone would buy it. So we hit the button, and Libby went live. Within the first hour of posting on Libby's accounts, 7 adult men contacted her. By the end of 9 days, that number was 92. The conversations ranged in severity from making sexual comments to sharing and requesting explicit photos and videos to manipulation and threats. The onslaught was so massive, it took 5 of us playing Libby full-time to keep up. We decided to move off-site where we could scale up the operation and gather as much information and evidence as possible. Since Libby is 15, men might try to falsely justify their actions towards her because of her proximity to adulthood. Would parents question, where's the bar? Would a 13-year-old face the same barrage of predators? A 12-year-old? How young could it possibly go? The graphics team transformed me into 11-year-old Bailey. Bailey is afraid of the dark. She hasn't had her first crush yet. She's still prepubescent. A parent might assume Bailey would be insulated from any sort of predatory attack. We launched our 11-year-old persona online.
444 and go. One like from a guy whose profile photo is a penis.
Let's say 1 minute and 7 seconds. We have a message request.
Although sorry, 2 more requests just came in. How much time? 1 minute and 40 seconds?
Yeah. How old are you? You go to the profile, you know that is a child. It also says in the profile that the child is in 6th grade.
Another one.
It's just lighting up, like the inbox is just boom, 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 boom.
An incoming video call in less than 5 minutes.
I can't see you. Don't be shy.
They all say don't be shy.
Few parents know just how dangerous these platforms are for so many kids. So we brought some on site so they could see for themselves. 11-year-old Bailey's persona was approached with an even more disturbing level of manipulation and requests. While the majority of the abuse happened from a distance, our child profiles also received requests to meet up in person, especially our 15-year-old persona. 28-year-old Keith was relentless. Like the others, he took no issue with Libby's age. He shared explicit videos of himself. He treated the virginity of an underage girl as a prize to be stolen. It was a tough decision, but if Keith wanted to meet Libby in person, we would let him. We synced up with our law enforcement contacts, and within 24 hours, we were on the ground and ready to meet. We already had evidence of what he had done online, but was he willing to carry things out in real life? We knew 37-year-old me attempting to pass for 15-year-old Libby would be a challenge. But I would wear a hat, a lot of makeup, and a big sweatshirt, and see if he showed up.
Nice to meet you too. Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
Okay. Is it what you expected?
Well, yeah.
So you going upstairs?
Wait, so do you want to go for a walk first?
Okay. What's wrong? Why you're not trying to rush upstairs?
What was that?
Why you're not trying to rush upstairs?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
Now let's go upstairs then. Don't be nervous.
I've never done anything like this before, so I'm a little nervous.
It's the first for everything.
Yeah.
Don't be. I'm not gonna rush you. We just go upstairs and talk.
Okay. Have you ever?
Be shy.
Are you okay with me being 15?
I've never done it.
Oh.
So good. I like to gentle, make you comfortable. I don't want to just get all the feeling and just, you know what I'm saying?
Are you hungry?
I'm trying to dodge it. Let's go upstairs.
Cyber tips coming in from the National Center for Missing and Exploited.
Bark turns over these potential child predators to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Using the app has led to arrests like this one in Florida last year.
The brutal reality is that a predator doesn't have to be in the same room, building, or even country to abuse a child. Libby and Bailey may not be real, but they represent countless children who are being sexually and psychologically abused, both online and in real life. I think about how I would have felt as a young, impressionable child. I would have kept the abuses to myself for fear of being shamed and blamed. I would have suffered with it, secretly and quietly.
Hi, Mama.
Hi, did you have a good day?
Yeah. Can I ask my phone?
Yeah.
I was wondering, so in 2 more days you're gonna come back?
That's right.
Okay. I love you.
I love you too.
Our work has led to numerous arrests, but it's a drop in the bucket. Our work, nor the work of law enforcement or legislation, will ever be able to protect children as well as engaged parents and guardians can. When asked, my advice for parents is to talk to your kids early and often, know what apps they're using and with whom they're communicating. When facing crisis, kids need a soft place to land. Make sure they know they can come to you for help.
Okay. So that's a piece from a full documentary that was done. Let's just take a minute, take a big deep breath. It is real, and I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's an important starting point to recognize the true risks that our kids are facing. And this is the worst case scenario, and this is still what we're up against. And so we really need to take what we can from that information. And I think that that helps us if we can keep that at the forefront of our brains as the kids are pushing back for more and more of the access, we need to understand those implicit risks that come with the access, right? Because these kids want all the apps all the time, all the screen things. And so we need to remember we're protecting them. We're looking out for them and their safety. I certainly didn't share this to scare anybody or upset anyone. It's to really understand the risks that are going on for kids. So knowing the risks, let's talk about what can we do to protect kids. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start early. As soon as they start having access to the screens, teach them that there's limits and rules that comes with the screens. The screens is a privilege. It's not a right that they have. We're not going to talk about screen time because the focus here is really about safety. But adequate supervision based on the age is a piece of it. Keep in mind that the rules are going to change as kids get older. And these conversations, like it was mentioned in the video, are going to happen over and over and over again. And we're going to talk about tonight what those conversations look like and what to include in those conversations. So what a child has for their screen rules at 5 is not going to be the same as 7, as 10, 13, 17. We want to ensure that kids very, very early on understand that any picture shared can be saved forever by the person on the receiving end. That's a really basic concept to just start teaching early on. And then as they get older, we're going to give more information and context to that. Discuss the importance of online safety at neutral times, meaning when there's not a lot going on, it's not a stressful moment, you have their captive audience, you have their full attention. This allows you to come to agreements, and one thing you can do is consider drawing up a contract with kids who are 6 and older. We'll talk about how to do that. It's important to talk about the safety at neutral times rather than when they're doing the screen time, for example, because you really want them to be able to take in the information you're sharing with them. If you're trying to talk to them as a reason to get off, they're not going to be able to receive it as well. Think about if you're in the middle of something you're really focused on, it's a high preference activity. If someone's trying to talk to you about something really serious, how well can you absorb that information versus just sitting on a couch when nothing else of interest is going on to you? So it's the same for kids. Be clear about the importance of them sharing things with you that they see that are not appropriate or they're unsure of. And we're going to talk tonight about how to be clear with them of what is inappropriate. But we really want to open up that discussion and let them know I'm a safe person to come to. And even if you're not sure, I really want you to have that conversation with me. We'll talk about what that conversation looks like. And then you want to help them understand their role in keeping themselves safe, not just from predators, but also from bullying. That's another important piece to understand that can be a risk factor of being online, is that bullying can occur and that can really impact their mental health. So one of the things we want to do, and we want to help kids identify this from a pretty early age, is understand what is the difference between joking and bullying. And this is something that carries into the classroom too, right? Or even into your own home if you have multiple kids in your home. And this may vary from person to person, what feels like joking versus bullying, but having a general understanding. So joking is something that someone said or did to provoke laughter or cause amusement. A short amusing anecdote or something prankish, like he tells a funny joke or they're playing a joke on somebody. A fun, playful, friendly way of making fun of your peers without hurting their feelings. It's usually a social exchange that's considered friendly. It's not negative. You're not trying to make the person feel bad. That's not the intent, and it's neutral. Versus bullying. The intent is to make the person feel bad about themselves in some way through shame or resentment or hurt, anger. It's abuse and mistreatment of someone vulnerable by someone that's typically stronger and has more power over them. And not necessarily stronger like physically, but maybe stronger social presence or stronger in another way like that. A person is bullied when he or she is exposed repeatedly and over time to negative actions on the part of one or more other persons, and he or she has difficulty defending him or herself. This definition includes three important components. Bullying is aggressive behavior that involves unwanted negative actions. So it's that negative intent rather than neutral. It involves a pattern of behavior repeatedly over time. And then it involves an imbalance of power or strength. And we can see one or two of these components, not necessarily always all of them. And so this is something, especially with kids and social media apps like Instagram, TikTok, where they're saying those comments or leaving videos about each other that is targeting someone or a group of people, and turns into bullying at the expense of the other person. So helping kids understand. Sometimes it can be hard for kids to understand, like, well, hey, all these people are laughing. They're just joking. It's just funny. But if they are feeling like this is not funny to me, this is really hurtful to me, or this is really embarrassing to me, they feel like they're being bullied. That's not a joke to them. And so from early on, helping them have that distinction between the two is going to be really important, not only for things directed towards them, but how they choose to interact with other people online. I think we've all seen, if you've been on social media, where what can happen is behind that screen, people tend to lose that sense of responsibility for their words. And so from early on, teaching kids this difference will help curb them from doing that. So one of the things I had mentioned earlier to start teaching them from 6 and up, one of the things we can do is we can come up with a contract with kids. Just an actual written agreement around what are the rules going to be when you're going to be online. So how you go through that, you first, again, at a neutral time that you both agree to, so you're going to let them know ahead of time, hey, you have this, you have a phone and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And so I want to make sure we're on the same page about what the expectations are. And so when's a good time we can sit down and talk through that. So there's no surprises. And then we want to talk about in that conversation or preface it ahead of time. And then again, in that conversation, why is this important? Why are we drawing up this contract? And the focus really needs to be on their safety, and that it's not that you don't trust them. It's other people out there who are unsafe. It's the predators. It's the bullies. You're trying to help make sure that they stay safe. You're protecting them. A lot of times kids will take this as, you don't trust me. You don't think I can make good decisions. And you really need to get their buy-in that it's not that. It's that it's my responsibility to make sure that you're safe and there's unsafe people on the other side of that screen. When you're going into the why, I think this video is appropriate for kids like 13 and up. Always depending on the child. Like there's some kids this might not be appropriate for until they're 17 sharing that video. But you can also pick to choose from pieces of it to just verbally share, you know, hey, I know that these are things that can happen, and so I want to talk about how to prevent that from happening to you. As the why. Another why can be overexposure. I don't want you to be exposed to things too soon. I want to make sure that things stay appropriate for your age. And, you know, these kids come from trauma. You can also bring that into it. Like, hey, I want to make sure I'm protecting you from things that I know would be really upsetting to you based on these circumstances that you've had before in life. So frame it in a way that really resonates for you and your family and your home and ties it to them, but their safety is the center of that conversation. And then you want to come to those agreements together. You really want it to be collaborative. And so if one of the agreements is we're not going to have any social media until you're 15, focus on what apps they can have. Or if they want social media, but you're unsure, choose one together that you're going to be comfortable starting off with. And we'll talk later about how to choose apps. But try to make sure they have a voice in it so they're really bought into the conversation and the agreements. And we can always come back to this contract, right? You can say like, all right, we're going to start off with this with the understanding that if this isn't working, we're going to need to adjust the contract. And I would also include in the contract, what are the consequences going to be if they violate the agreements? So that's already it's pre-understood. Like they know what the expectations are. Everyone's in agreement. You're going to write it all down and then give a time frame of when it might be important to revisit that contract. So for some kids, you might need to revisit it every day. For kids that have low impulse control, for kids that are very driven to explore and push the boundaries, they're going to try to find ways. You might need to be looking every single day in their phone and checking to make sure that they're following the agreements. Some kids, like it's just going to hang on a wall and you have a general idea that things are going well, just going to be dependent on the kid. And then make sure that everyone signs that contract and make sure they understand what it means. When you sign a contract, it means that you're agreeing to this. Are you agreeing to this? And if so, you're signing that. I would recommend before giving a child a phone that this conversation is had ahead of time, and these agreements are you come to these agreements ahead of time. And if they're not ready to abide by those agreements, then that demonstrates they're not ready to have the responsibility of a phone or some kind of device of their own, a tablet, an Xbox, any kind of device where they can get online. So when we look at social media and gaming, we want to consider these really important safety factors. The first is don't use real names on their profile. Have them come up with something else. Make sure they understand not to send pictures of themselves or any personally identifying information, such as their address, bank information. I've heard of kids that have sent pictures of, parents' personal information because their friend said they could buy something for them. I mean, you need to actually explain that to them that that's very dangerous. We're never going to share anything like that. Normalize it. Just because a lot of kids have a certain game or app, that does not mean that it's safe for them. Just because that's the rules in another home doesn't mean that's going to be the rules in our home. That's a huge issue that comes up with kids. And so if you set that expectation from the beginning, it's a lot easier to follow. But you can still add it at any point. If at any point you decide, you know what, even though all your friends have it, and I know that a lot of kids have it, we're changing the rules in our house. Make sure they know to not accept friend requests from anyone they don't know. Make sure you explain to them what grooming looks like, and so that they can identify if and when it's happening. Make sure they understand to not answer questions about their personal information on games or apps from people they don't know. Even if it's someone they know, try to keep personal information, a voice exchange, unless it's a very trusted person. So like in their headset or on the phone, having a phone conversation. Make sure games aren't being streamed, which is when they're doing that live. So doing a live YouTube video or live streaming on Xbox. Those can be recorded. The child's voice can be recorded, and anyone can watch and comment on those videos as they're happening real time. So by not accepting friend requests from people they don't know, that protects them. But when it's live, none of that applies. And so that opens them up to predators, to see them, to hear them, to interact with them. And the predators can be very systematic about seemingly becoming a friend when really they're grooming the child. Make sure that they understand that all social media accounts are set on private and to be viewed only by their friends. I know that even with my own kids, like One of them was really good about remembering to do that here, but then he forgot to do it here. And so one of our responsibilities as the caregiver is to also be checking their account from our profile to make sure that they're set to private. And also looking at these settings with the child so that they know how to do it themselves. Make sure that you have passwords to all of their devices, all of their accounts, and making sure that you're checking their accounts regularly, at least until you get a good baseline and start to really build that trust. And make sure that the kids know that this is going to happen. It's not going to be done in secret. It's not going to be grabbing it when they don't know about it. You want them to know and understand this is the expectation. This is going to be part of the agreements. Again, coming back to safety, this is for their safety. And you can think about it in terms of like, you know, everyone's different, but at what age would you send a child into the mall alone by themselves? At what age would you think kids are safe to go out into a big park like Silverwood without adult supervision? At what age do you think kids can go out in the wild, so to speak, without adult supervision? Sending them out into the internet without supervision is just as risky, if not more so, in some ways. So then for the caregivers, for you, you don't want to post any pictures with your child as a profile picture. That's part of the foster home licensing wax, right? Like you're not even allowed to post things with their pictures to protect their identity. But even once you adopt them, or even if it's a family member of yours and you're allowed to do it, like if it's your grandchild, you don't want it to be the profile picture, because if your account is set to private, someone else, a predator or someone you don't want to see their picture, can view it and they can take that picture and do whatever they want with it. You, as the caregiver, only want to accept friend requests from people that you know. Make sure you and your child audience is set to friends, not public. And the difference is if it's set to public, even though you have a private account, the public can see your posts. If it's set to friends only, then only people you've accepted as friends can view that content. Whatever apps you agree that your child can have, get those apps so that you can monitor their use and their friend activity. Look for backup accounts. A lot of kids have their spam accounts that they use as backup, so make sure you're aware of both of those. Don't tag locations of where your child is in real time. That can alert predators to where they are. I contract with DCYF as an in-home provider, and we're seeing more and more instances of sex trafficking, and adults and kids are literally just taken off the streets. And so by tagging the location, if a predator knows, they will be able to see what they're wearing, what they look like, what you look like, and they'll look for when that child is 10 feet from you, far enough away where you can't see, and they'll snatch them. Don't share publicly in any social media what school your children attend. That can give enough information by looking at your profile to be able to potentially go in and say, hey, I'm Uncle so-and-so, I'm here to grab so-and-so, or in the school pickup line. They're not checking IDs in the school pickup line. This is a really hard one and an important one. If your child shows you that they cannot manage an app or a specific screen activity, listen to that. They will argue and argue and argue. But if they're demonstrating that they can't be responsible and follow those really important safety rules, it's so hard. You have to pull it back and just trust that you're doing the right thing. And they will fight and fight and fight. I know the battle. Like I said, I have 3 kids of my own. But you just have to trust that you know what's best. So it's okay to say, you know what, it looks like you weren't quite ready for this one. We're going to take it away for 3 months, or once they hit this benchmark, and then you'll try it again. It doesn't always have to be for forever. And this is kind of a surprising one, but don't ever force kids to give affection. Teach them to have body autonomy. So not forcing them to give a hug and kiss to a family member they're going to visit, or sitting on Santa's lap, or ever forcing them to touch someone when they don't want to. This really helps with those predators, someone who's trying to groom them and asking for affection through the screen. If they're taught they don't have to do that, they're less likely to give in even when they don't want to. If they have been trained and taught that if an adult is asking for affection and attention in some way, they feel like they have to do it to um, appease the adult, it's going to be harder for them to say no. And then pornography. Statistically, 90% of boys see porn by the age of 10. It's a really sad fact. It is a fact. How you address this helps them keep their body and brain safe. I know at my kids' school district, there are not protection plans in place on the school-issued laptops. Porn can still be accessed. I mean, there's a couple safeguards in place, but not nearly enough. And so it's not necessarily always because the kid is searching. It's just that when those things aren't put in place to lock it down, they just come across it. And so a book that I really recommend how to talk to kids about this, it's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Burn Proofing Today's Young Kids. This is a really good book. It has really good metaphors. It talks about if they see a graphic image, one way they can protect their brain, like putting on a helmet. If you're riding a bike, they connect that metaphor is to look away and tell a trusted adult. And then it talks about how to come up with a plan for when they come across these images, what to do about it, and get that adult to help them potentially not happen again. Another thing you can do with kids is teach them about privacy eyes. So I like to teach kids this idea of if they see someone with pretty revealing clothing on and it makes them feel uncomfortable, then they can just look away, or they can look at the person in the eyes. They don't have to look at the part that's revealing. And they can do the same thing online. If an image comes across the computer screen or whatever the device is that makes them uncomfortable, revealing, whatever it is, they can look away. They can, I've had it happen personally before where I'll go click on like an Instagram page that I thought was for cooking, and then here's all of these graphic images. Or my little cousin, her account was hacked, and all of a sudden I was getting these images from someone that hacked her account. Like, it happens very innocently, this happens. And so teaching them about privacy eyes and then just growing that muscle of looking away. The book frames this as a metaphor of it's a muscle that you're growing stronger, learning how to look away from those images that are inappropriate. So I can't recommend this book enough. And this is a conversation, again, this happens over and over and over again. When it's 10, you're just talking about there's going to be pictures you might see that are of naked bodies, and that's really only for adults. It's not for kids. When they become teenagers, that conversation is going to look a lot different. It's going to be more like, this could be intriguing to you. You might be interested in seeing what happens, and it's not real. It's fake. This is not a good example of where you should set your standards. It does not show consent for the women. It doesn't show equal pleasure. Like, you can go into more about why logistically it's unhealthy for them. So again, a reason why these conversations happen again and again based on the age of the child. And then things you do when you are at home. So there's an app, they mentioned it in that short video we watched, called Bark. They had mentioned in that video, Bark reports things to the FBI, graphic content that comes through. I'll explain quickly how Bark works. Canopy is another similar app. I have not personally used Canopy. I have used Bark and Google. So it's an app you have on your phone that monitors your kids' phone activity. And so it flags things like swear words, sexualized language, potential bullying language, and it just sends you alerts if those things, what the words are that are being used, and content that includes those types of things. Google can do similar things. That is more like monitoring the apps, like they can't get an app without your approval. It lets you determine what time the phone cannot be used for anything except like checking the time or setting an alarm. It shuts down the app activity. So they work similarly, but there are some nuanced differences. There's also a cell phone device called Pinwheel. I'm guessing there's other like it. I only know of Pinwheel. It's a cell phone you can buy. The entire phone is controlled by the parents or caretaker, caregiver, and you have ultimate control of everything that's on that phone. I mean, they cannot do anything without you first giving consent. And so that's a good one for kids that really struggle with self-regulation. And for those really tech smart kids that seem to know how to work around everything, Pinwheel's a good solution. Have parental control settings on your routers in your home. Check with your internet provider for the details on that, but you can assign kids' devices to groups and put parental controls on those. So you can determine like these devices have kids settings, mom and dad have these settings, or control settings based on the age of who's in the home. When those devices leave your home internet, they have access to the internet settings. So you want to have devices have the parental control settings as well. So what that means is if you're using the internet for your parental control settings, you need to also have something in place for when they leave the home, which would be something like Bark, Canopy, or Google. The iPhones are the harder phones to control. You can't use Bark with iPhone. Consider creating child profiles on devices, all devices, your Xbox, your tablet, your laptops, your cell phones. Child profiles have different types of access than adult profiles. So on Xbox, for example, if it's an adult profile, they're not going to have limitations on what games they can download. Versus a child profile, there are going to be limitations based on the age restrictions of the games. Yeah, like I just said, you can set age restrictions, length of time on the device, what they can be doing on the device, app installation restrictions. There's just so many different ways to monitor all of this stuff, and almost 100% of the time you need to be using several of these different things because kids typically have more than one way they're getting online. They're getting online on their tablet and their phone and their Xbox. The really challenging one is the school laptops. We don't have parental control of those, and so a workaround with that is that it stays in the backpack. It only comes out for homework that's being supervised. It goes back in the backpack. For kids that really struggle with that self-control with the devices, having a lockbox or somewhere that you can put the devices at night or whenever it's supposed to be sleep time or no screen time, having it in a lockbox or having it in your room, and then you're determining when you're handing it back out to them in the morning or when they go home from school, whatever that looks like for you. That would also be in your contract. So you can have your phone from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then it gets handed over to me to go in my room with me. Or in some homes, like handing over the Xbox cord or the remote control. It just depends on what the device is and what level of supervision you need to provide. And it really is not just limited by the age of the child, but also by the child themselves, their self-control, things like that. Make sure that you're reading about apps before adding them for kids. Learn what are the safety risks for this app, do some research on it, what are the age restrictions. What tends to happen is kid will make the request, oh, I want to get this app, all my friends are on it, all my friends are doing Roblox, and then the caregiver is like, oh, okay, if all of the other second graders have it, my kid can have it too. And then come to find out Roblox has all these different chat rooms, and it's really not like, it's a very poor safety risk assessment and not appropriate for a second grader. So do your research beforehand. And then you can come back to that kind of family rule of just because other families have it doesn't mean it's something that we're going to have if you deem it not appropriate.
Camille,
yeah.
How do you handle if a child is placed with you and already has a phone, and you don't have, I'm assuming the parents are paying for the phone. So is there a program that works that way if you don't have access to the bill or to the phone service itself?
That comes up a lot. That really comes up a lot in parents that are in divorced homes, parents that are going back and forth with different family members for different reasons. That's a more nuanced situation. And so I mean, I would want to know, first of all, why does that child have the phone? If it's so that the child can have access to the parent, then letting the child know, okay, these are the times we're going to be able to call or contact the parent. But it is okay to say in your home, these are the rules. We're not going to have the cell phone. We're just going to put it in this drawer until it's time to go. Or you can agree on supervised time. They're going to have access to the phone. I don't know if there's any wax about restricting kids from their own things they own. Do you, Luann?
I will look at that while you're continuing on and see
Okay.
what I can find. He was also saying, what do you do if you don't think they're ready for a phone? But I'll see if I can research that in the wax too. It's kind of hard
I would
sometimes
first
when, go ahead.
go ahead.
When you get a child that comes with a phone, a lot of workers will say you have no right as the foster parent or the caregiver to say they can't have it. But like Camille keeps referring back to, your house, your rules. Make sure the social worker knows that before they bring the child to your home. Just upfront that in our house, these are the rules around cell phones. So if this child's coming with a phone, you need to be aware of that. Or if you disagree with our rules, this may not be the home to place that child in.
Yeah, I would first want to know what the wax are because I want to make sure I'm not advising to take something away and a wax says you can't do that. The concern about having a phone in your home that you are not monitoring is you don't know if there's things happening on that phone that are putting that child at risk. And your job ultimately is to protect them. And we're talking about huge risk factors that are online, right? And so you have to be able to monitor and supervise that phone to protect them. And if it's not in your name, do you have access to all the login information? Do you have everything you need to monitor that phone? Those are more questions to be asking. And then going back to your question, if you don't think they're ready for one, well, first of all, we need to just look at the safety aspect of it. And then developmentally, yeah, I mean, there's developmentally different kids are ready for different things at different times, and you may differ on what they're ready for. And so that's another reason you would want to be able to monitor. I love this person's recommendation of asking the caseworker to take it back to the parent if we're allowed to do that. There's a WAC that says kids have a right to privacy and that we are allowed to look at their texts or social media messages. You are or aren't? Oh, aren't. Oh, of course Luann brought us the WAC. Okay. Should we dive into this right now? Should I share the WAC? So it sounds like you would need to get it worked into an agreement with the social worker. Although, I mean, this would be up for debate, right? Like, is what they're texting in an app. Is that personal mail, electronic mail? That's not a phone call, but it's phone usage. It's kind of tricky. But what would you say if a 12-year-old girl is in your care and she starts leaving sexually graphic photos for men that are messaging her in your home and it's being documented as your home, and then someone comes and says you didn't protect her and keep her safe, and you thought you weren't able to supervise that? I mean, it just gets really tricky.
SWAC talks more about foster parent homes monitoring and using monitoring devices. Like, you can't have monitors that record activity in bedrooms or listening devices, that kind of thing. Except for for number one, it pretty much is about the foster home. And I think you could have a good argument by assuring the right to privacy of personal mail, electronic mail, and phone calls. You could write that into the agreement and have a team meeting with your child's worker and define each one of those. If they get a personal letter, they do have the right to look at that. But if it's something bad going back and forth, what kind of action do you want to take? And you could talk to them about that as a team. Um, Otherwise, a court order would have to be implemented if the parents are throwing, big fits or whatever. It could be taken to the next court hearing. But other than that, I don't see a lot in this WAC that talks about what y'all are talking about.
Yeah. Another fact is that foster care youth are at an increased risk of being sex trafficked and groomed. That is a fact. And so to me, that is even more reason to try to advocate for clear understanding on what you can supervise and how you can monitor their online presence. Yeah, I can't say the number of teen foster kids I've seen trafficked. It's really sad. And all of it, almost all of it, out of hundreds of girls, was online grooming. So, okay. And I don't share that to scare people. It's just a reality I've seen working in this industry for 17 years. So, okay, so these are all the different ways at home that we can be monitoring. And yes, it is usually a combination of some or all of these different ways because they have all these different types of devices. You're not going to monitor the Xbox the same way you are a tablet and a laptop and a cell phone typically, especially because they're going to also be leaving the home with some of these devices. And then none of this is to replace monitoring and frequent conversations with your child about online safety. It's just a frequent, ongoing, continuous conversation. So how do we respond when kids share concerns with us? If they say something like, hey, I saw this thing someone said and it was really confusing to me. They didn't say it to me, but it was in a comment to someone else. Or, hey, someone messaged me and it made me feel uncomfortable and this is why. What do you think? Or just show you something, the graphic that was shared with someone else or they just happened to see or was sent to them. So you always want to lead with, thank you for sharing with me. Thank you for trusting me with that information. Ask them to tell you more, like, what about that is concerning for you? What are your thoughts around this? How would you feel in this situation? Letting them know that they're a good friend if they're sharing on behalf of someone else. And be really honest about the follow-up that you will take if you need to notify others. And always lead with you're focusing on safety, emotional safety, physical safety, psychological safety. When you do that contract agreement, when you first come to your agreements of the use of whatever the device is, you want to have that conversation at that time about if it's disclosed to me that you saw something on someone else's social media page that put them at risk, or someone sent something to you, you want to be very clear what they can expect the follow-up is going to be, not to scare them, but so that there's no surprises. And it's tricky how to do that in a way that doesn't make them feel like they can't come to you. We're just always leading with safety. The focus is always safety. I want to help keep you safe. I want to help you make sure your friends are safe. And then, oh my goodness, I finished right at the minute we hit 7:30. Um, so how would you decide if an app is safe for a child?
I'm going to stop recording.